Hey, thanks for tuning into the Building Blocks podcast. Today, I'm super excited to interview my good friend Nick Chapman. He's running a 26 unit short to midterm rental deal outside of Wilmington, Carolina, where it's all studios for, let's say 15 to 45 days for rent in this market. Now, the reason I'm interviewing him is he has a fascinating story of how he proved the concept of how he repositioned that asset before he ever submitted any sort of wire to buy the property and go through with it, which I think is super fascinating because oftentimes we hear a lot about the fires that people have to put out when they over renovate a deal or they made the mistake of how they positioned an asset. What he did was he actually teased the concept to the market and only moved forward once he had that proof. So he breaks down all the juicy details of how he did this. In the end, his avatar was travel nurses, which is a market that tons of people are trying to get in front of, but don't really know how. So he shares exactly how he did that from idea to execution. And the end result is fascinating. He ended up tripling his rents for the studios in Wilmington, North Carolina, mind you, from $800 to $1,900 to $2,300, depending on the season. So really incredible results when it comes to an IRR perspective and the returns on that specific deal. So his investors are, of course, thrilled. But the marketing and sales piece and the proof of concept is what I'm most interested in. So he breaks down the whole story on the pod. Hope you enjoy. Nick, thanks so much for hopping on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. We've been friends for a while. I'm excited to be a guest on your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you have a really unique background in the sense that, for the deal that we're going to discuss, your 26 unit in Wilmington, you've kind of played every single role in your organization from marketer to janitor to locksmith to operator, owner, investor. So the experience that you have is really cool because in most bigger organizations, you don't have visibility as to what other departments are doing. Like, let's take the most dramatic example of Graystar, right? If you're in operations, it's gonna be hard for you to figure out like what is going on in our marketing department or how is ownership perceiving something, right? The bigger the organization, the harder it will be to overcome that. So why don't you introduce yourself, talk about this deal that we're going to talk about, and how that basically came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I own 26 units of multifamily, and I'm very active in the mobile home park and RV park real estate ownership operations side. So my whole goal of my company is to own, but also self-manage and operate. Like we don't use a third-party property management company, and that's probably slowed down my growth, but the small deals that I do far exceed expectations because I'm so involved in the day to day. So I think that there's two really like fundamental things you can do in real estate. You can either scale and you're going to have to outsource your management, or you can do a couple deals and really focus on those and they will absolutely crush. So I'm in that startup phase where I'm absolutely crushing these small deals that I'm doing. But it always wasn't like this. I was a Marine. I enlisted right out of high school. I'm 31 now. And I really came from a poor middle class family. Both my parents actually still work at a print factory. I have an older brother who graduated high school, 2 years older than me. Immediately after graduating, he worked at this print factory. So I was like, if you guys have showed me anything, it's I don't want to go work at this print factory. Like I will do anything to not go work at this print factory because I'm the youngest and just looking up, right? My dad comes home, his hands are covered in paint and he's miserable. And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way. But I'm in small town Massachusetts, and we never left the state unless if it was a camping trip, right? But make no mistake, I had a great childhood. My parents are married, and I just had an incredible family. So much love. So I'm grateful for that. But they did show me what I didn't want, in a sense, right? So I did what any reasonable person would do, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps because I figured I really slacked off in college. Like I had ADHD, C student my whole life. So it was too late. I turned the bus around too late to like go to college. And plus I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, Marine Corps, I'll get to travel. I'll have 4 years to figure it out. And then I get the GI Bill, 4 years of free education when I get out. So it's perfect. Best decision that I ever made. Got deployed a couple times. Got married when I was 20. My wife was 19. We just celebrated 11 years. Just an incredible, magical, so much growth happened in such a short amount of time. It was like insanity.
Wow.
Got out of the Marine Corps, I became a state trooper, which is like you've never heard a real estate guy who was also a Marine and a trooper, maybe a Marine, but not a state trooper. So like I loved serving my country and I loved the simplicity of like, hey, you wear this uniform, go do this. It was so easy. A natural progression was like, I love serving my country. I'm going to go serve my community at a really high level. And long story short, COVID happened. It really sat me down and said, like, do you want to do this for the rest of your life? And I think the answer was no. I was a very high producer. I'm ADHD. I don't like sitting still. I don't do well on vacation. I don't like sitting still. And so one day my supervisor called me and basically said, you're on desk duty. And for those that don't know, if you're on desk duty, you're like, you shot somebody or like you said something really bad. They take you off the
You
road to
messed
do this
up.
investigation. You messed up. And I hadn't messed up. I was like high octane, high protein, putting handcuffs on people. And he was like, long story short, he was like, this is really the only way that I'm going to catch up on my police reports. Like, because he had to correct my reports. So I was swamping this guy down in paperwork. So I'm like, I'm being punished for being a top producer. So I just knew that just like for
He
me,
had
that
to
just,
slow you down.
yeah. And so I was like, but I had my higher ups, like the colonel of the state police was like, hey, go put handcuffs on people. Because when you do that, we have statistics to bring to the politicians. We can get raises, we can get equipment, and we can show how much our troopers are doing. So I have like conflicting. So I'm like, this just doesn't sit well with me. And so COVID happened. I met my neighbor. His name's Kevin. He owns 650 units. He has this like crazy house with a swimming pool. The kind of house where you're like, who lives there? Like, what do you do? And so, he drove by my house every day, drives a regular truck, wears Levi jeans, certainly wasn't like guru, like some like, he invited me to snowmobile one day. So took him up on it. I was a trooper at the time, of course. And he hands me a Miller Lite. It's freezing cold in the middle of a trail intersection. We're kind of BSing. And I'm like, look, man, like, what do you do? And is it legal? Because we're in snow pants. I don't care. Like, I'm not on duty right now. I'm just curious. And he's like, I do real estate. I'm like, real estate? He's like, yeah, I own 650 units. 650 units? Like, what does that even mean? He's like, well, I own Section 8, I own market rate, I own mobile home parks, RV parks, I have commercial buildings. So he's not all in on Class A multifamily. He's doing all sorts of different niches. And this was 2020, and COVID got really bad. They, at one point, as a trooper, they said, hey, no more stopping cars. We want you to just sit and drive around and like show our presence. So when people go by you at 120 miles an hour, they at least hit the brake pedal. But don't go stop them because you might get COVID. Okay, got it. So
So your job
Kevin,
became useless, pretty
yeah,
much.
pretty much. So, but Kevin agreed to mentor me. And I think this was a test looking back, but he's like, hey, here's 12 books. Just like, go read these books. I read these, they're great. Okay. Well, I have ADHD. I've said that 4 times already. I can't read a book unless I listen to it and read it. But I'm driving around. So I'm like, I'm going to listen to the book. I'm getting paid. I don't like sitting still anyway. So it was like kind of perfect. I was super curious about it. And so I read all these books, hung out with Kevin for 6 months, sauna, working out, snowmobiling. And for a lack of a better term, I'm like, man, I can do this. Like, I could seriously figure this out. Like, this is not like creating a rocket and landing it on a bracket. Like, this is fairly common sense. And I would go back to Kevin and I would ask him questions. And I think I really seriously think he gave like so many people are fascinated about real estate. They never actually do anything about it. So I think Kevin was used to like, hey, will you mentor me? And was like his test is like, yeah, go read these books and then come back to me. But don't come back to me until you read these tests. So long story short, I immersed myself and really just asked him, drilled him with questions. He saw something in me and he basically said, look, you're not doing yourself of a service to stay in policing for 30 years. You've already seen that. You've already know that. It's like, look down the road. We had another neighbor who was a cop. He's like, he misses all the birthdays, all the holidays. Like, do you want to be 45 and that's your life? And the answer was obviously no. So he's like, look, you got to do it. It's like, you have everything,
It's a
you have
brutal
all the
wake up
tools.
call.
Yeah, it was a great wake up call. And I saw it from different angles from the police, my manager telling me, plus my neighbor, plus like internally, I had like this entrepreneur bug. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I sold my house. I moved down to North Carolina, Wilmington. I live in Wilmington. And I don't know a single person here, by the way. I just was like, North Carolina was a thing because that's where I was stationed when I
Wait,
was
so
a
your
Marine.
neighbor is not from Wilmington. Where were you living when you met this neighbor?
In New Hampshire. I was a New Hampshire trooper, and my neighbor was also in New Hampshire, and we were snowmobiling on the trails and stuff. And so I picked Wilmington because I was stationed near here when I was in the Marine Corps. So my wife and I were like, when we retire, we're going to move to Wilmington. Well, we took our equity from our home and just moved to Wilmington, just speed it up. right? And I was like, I have like a decent amount of savings from selling my house. So my mindset was like, if I can't make it work with $50,000 in 12 months, I suck. So that was kind of like my thing because I had all the tools, I had the information, I just had to go out and actually do it, right? And when I left, unbeknown to me, Kevin and I were in the sauna, and he's like, "I'll make you a deal. I've been thinking about this for a very long time." I said, "Okay." He said, "When you go down there, I've always wanted to invest out of state. When you go down there, if you find the deal, I will bring the capital. You'll do all of the work, and we'll find a way to split ownership 50-50 or some ratio, right?" It was unclear, but it was just like, hey, let's build a portfolio out there. I did it here. I don't trust anyone outside of New Hampshire. I trust you. You've clearly been like really taking action. And I think like the big takeaway is not that like I had daddy's money because I don't and I still don't. There's been a lot of deals that have gone south and a lot of deals that haven't worked out. But like I think the point is that like I didn't know that he was going to make me that deal. I was making that genuine relationship, that genuine like reaching out and learning and just curiosity, natural curiosity. And he saw something, and that later developed into him investing in a bunch of deals with me and us buying this 26 unit apartment complex together. So that's really how it started.
I think when you believe in someone, you want to invest in someone who's going to make it happen with or without you. And I've seen this just talking to different venture capital firms. Like my company, we haven't raised any money, but we've spoken to VCs before. And what I've noticed is they want to invest in someone who's making it happen with or without their money. They don't want someone being like, "Oh, I really need you to invest to make this happen." It's more like, "Hey, I'm going to be successful. Do you want in?" And if you don't want in, that's fine. Someone else will, and they'll reap the benefits and not you. That's what the best investors, that's how they want to operate. And I think that's what you just did with your neighbor. He said, "Whoa, Nick is just coming down here of his own volition. He's taking a major bet on himself that expires in a year. It's not like Nick can just live out there forever." And so he was like, "Okay, I'm going to bet on this horse for sure."
That's exactly right. And like I was gonna make it happen no matter what. Like I had the mindset of like I will do anything to be successful. I've been reading of self-help books, Tony Robbins mindset stuff for years, always been like working on my mindset. So it was like, I'm gonna figure this out. I kind of just was like, hey, throw me a bone if you find something. And so like it's kind of like to your point, I was gonna make it happen no matter what. So I started just hammering the phones, cold calling, because as a trooper, I was doing interview and interrogation on suspects. Like, think about it. I would stop a car, there I could smell marijuana or I could see something in plain view. And now I have to convince this total stranger who we don't know each other, right? I have to make this person so comfortable that he trusts me, that he believes me, that he whatever. I basically have to convince him and sell him to allow me to search his car. Like, think about how violating that is. Like, hey, I might be able to put you in jail, but like, let me convince you to let me search your
That it's
car.
fine.
That's fine. And so I did like really terrible investigations, like RAPE cases and just really terrible cases that like I'm not proud that it's in my I still have like some nightmares about some stuff that I've seen and done. Like at one point I went to a suicide and saw so much blood that I couldn't eat meat for a while. Like it was just crazy like how it messes with you. But where I'm going with that is that like it's sales. Everything comes down to sales and how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so that really taught me well into real estate, talking with owners. I make cold calls to owners directly and they tell me to F off. Like, whatever, like, go on to the next one, right? And so this works so well. I found a 26 unit apartment complex off market direct to seller here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And for those multifamily operators out there, it's a pretty unique deal in that it's all studio apartments. So 26 studios. Most complexes, for those that don't know, have a section of one bedrooms, two bedrooms, three bedrooms, which is great because if they can't afford the three bedroom, you can put them in a one. And if they can afford, they want a one, but they can't afford a two, you can kind of upsell them and downsell them as you see fit. And that helps with the lifetime value. See, when you have a studio, everyone has so much crap. And they're like, I need something bigger. Well, we don't have anything bigger to put you in. All we have is studios. So it's like a constant
Also,
cycle.
any minor life change is going to pull you out of a studio. If you start dating someone seriously, you're probably going to want to go get a bigger space. If you're a couple living in the studio, you have a kid or you get a dog, you're probably going to want a bigger space. So it's like any minor life change risks them leaving. Whereas with the diversity of the other bedroom types, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
And I know you're in
yeah,
Canada, but Americans are like, we have so much crap. Like the houses are just getting bigger, the walls are coming in on us, and we just consume, 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 consume. And so any real estate investor with a like any level of education will tell you studios are a no-go because the LTV is terrible and you're constantly turning around units. And by the way, studios are the
highest
cheapest.
turnover.
When you're the cheapest, you attract a really rough avatar that destroys the unit. So now you have a combination of somebody who's destroying my unit, and you have a combination of a short lifetime value. Lease cancellations, turnover is wild, repairs are wild. It's just not a good formula for multifamily investing. But it was right
And this is
across the
what you
street
found.
from a massive, massive hospital here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Wilmington is booming. The wait time in the ER is like 9 hours because of just the amount of influx that they have. So I was like, where do traveling nurses stay? Because this complex is across the street from the hospital and it's a studio, and a studio is way bigger than a hotel. So I knew if nurses were staying in hotels, that I could price myself cheaper on a per night basis than a hotel, but I would give them so much more value. It's 450 square feet with washers and dryers, and it's class B plus with like granite and like a truly good layout, like awesome design. I bought the apartment complex from a luxury beach house builder, and he does multifamily on the weekends as like kind of like a I got the supply chain connection. So he put in really top-notch stuff. He has really high level GC general contractor connections. So he kind of overbuilt the complex. So it was perfect for me because he's looking at this like, you're giving me that price? And I'm like, yes. He's like, you can have it for that price, because he knew that the market rate for a studio was $800 and that's what he was charging. So like
He didn't see a lot of upside.
he saw no upside because he's running a home building business and he has no desire to do short-term rentals like I was, right? I think you probably get where I'm going with this. I furnished the units and all I did was paint them and furnish them. And I now charge anywhere between 1,900 and 2,300 per month per unit. So bought a studio deal that was
So from
paying.
800 to more than double, almost triple sometimes.
Yeah, and it's like seasonality dynamic pricing. So we do get more than triple on some occasions. But like if you think about it, okay, so now I have to absorb the utility cost because the guy who I bought it from said 12-month leases, put the electricity in your name, water's on you, man, cable's on you, don't, I bought it, and when you go to an Airbnb, you better hope that you don't have to call Spectrum and put internet into your own name, right? So it's all bills paid, but think about how much electricity, how much water a studio is using. It's small. Think
Especially if
about
you're working nursing hours, right?
they're all working. So they don't even like what's incredible is they pull off our sheets, they bring their own bedding because they're very clean health people. They eat takeout, they don't ever use our pots and pans, and they're very clean natured, keep it to themselves people. So it's like a great like I've done one eviction in 2 years and the tenant wasn't a nurse. So it's just a great avatar to rent to. I don't ever have problems like collecting the rent. Embarrassingly enough, I forgot to post the rent to someone's account and they paid it. And my like PM software was like, hey, what's this? And I was like, wow, that's like embarrassing, but like that's just like the avatar that we rent to. But going back to Kevin, he kind of was like the same mindset. Like, I don't see this. I don't like studios. If you look at my portfolio, they have the highest turnover rate. And so how like obviously we bought the deal. Well, we bought the deal for $3.6 million. That's a big risk to take. Like, is this going to work? So what I did was when I was at the tour, I went and took pictures. And remember, this is off market. So I went and ran a test advertisement on several places, Furnished Finder being one of them, Facebook Marketplace being another, and was just totally overwhelmed of the response. I remember getting 25 to 40 leads out the gate, just swamped with inquiries at 2,200 per month, all bills paid with a couple of pictures in our location. So it's a risk of like, does the seller see it? Seller is so busy building his business, and even if it was, I would be like, hey, look, I'm just testing the market, right? So I think there's low recourse there. I'm not saying
And
to
also, he
like,
doesn't see how many people reached out to you. He sees what you posted it for, but who knows how many bites you got? It could have been like, oh yeah, like there were crickets. Just saying.
yeah, but I think ethically it's a question, right? Because it's like, hey, you don't own, like, if I was selling you my apartments and you put out an ad, I'd be like, hey, what are you doing? You don't own these. Like, what are you doing? So I think, like, ultimately, like, you're taking a big risk, though, sending $3.6 million and not having proof of concept. So I'm not saying lie, cheat, steal, but I am saying, like, you can be creative. You can do this without having to, like, not take action. You're like, oh, I don't know if I should do that. So, long story short, the test ad was ripped. It was so successful. And I remember just sending inquiries to Kevin and being like, this is going to work. At 26 units, 2,200 per month, you can quickly do the math and see that this is a very profitable deal. And so that's exactly,
I want to stay on this for 1 second.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. What most investors do that I see when it comes to, let's say, a typical multifamily deal is they underwrite based on comps. The problem is comps are comparable properties, competitive properties, but they aren't your product. You found a product. You could have found comps, but you wouldn't have landed at your conclusion here. You could have just found the comps that, hey, look, Kevin, these comps are getting $300 more a month. If we make these upgrades and do this, we could get an extra $300 a month. Here's the IRR for the deal. Here's how the 3.6 million actually makes sense, and here's why your investment will be worthwhile. You found a concept. You had the great idea. You put two and two together. Wait, there's nurses at this hospital. I could potentially reposition this product to have ideal product market fit for those nurses, way better than a hotel. And I can triple these rents. But I'm still theorizing because I'm saying, oh, like it would be cheaper than a hotel with higher value, so they should go for it. You actually went and tested to see if they would go for it. So before you ever made that purchase decision, you come to Kevin and you say, look, we've got 60 inquiries in the last week for this studio. People are blowing me up. What percentage of these do you think we can convert? Let's say it's 20% who are actually going to rent and not be tire kickers and actually get approved. Cool. Here's what our numbers look like. You were working with very good numbers. These are not numbers that you made up. You actually went and hunted and found numbers that give you confidence, that inspire confidence in what you could actually do with the deal. And I just want to point that out because it's so rare. I never hear these kinds of stories. When it comes to due diligence, I think people love to open up fancy data analytics reports and modeling and all this cool, sexy stuff. But what about like soft launching your product? Like I'm in the software industry, I'm in the software space. We have an idea. What we try to do to prove that idea is do the bare minimum. It's an MVP, minimum viable product. Let's do the bare minimum to test if this is going to work instead of just looking at the reports and figuring it out. I love that you did this, and I think that should be so highlighted. Ethical or not, right? To post an ad for someone else's property. I'm
Yeah.
saying the concept as a whole, just to do that extra step of, hey, why don't we just get some renderings of what we could make this look like, post the rent, for example, post the new rent that we think we can get, and let's just see what happens. So I think that should be emphasized and should be a model for other people to follow because it's just a good business philosophy.
And as an investor, you pro forma, like the whole model of real estate is buy, value add. Like you hear this term like value add real estate, and it's like everyone's paying 850. You can buy this and then charge 2,200. If you use the same analytics, the same numbers that you use to buy it, you just made $3 million. If you can do that, like that's the if, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's like the if, like how can we remove that risk? And I don't feel comfortable raising money from my mother, my grandmother, Kevin, or anyone without knowing that I can beat my pro forma. So all of my pro formas are very reasonable. But if I bring a pro forma to an investor, it's like, hey, here's a test ad. I went out and did it. Like we just did an RV park in Missouri. We bought it from a 75-year-old guy. And we got permission to do this because I was like riding that ethical teeter. I was like, if I get permission, that totally takes out any like me staying up at
Yeah.
night. And so he didn't give a shit. So we literally just ran a test ad and we're talking to our current residents. This is an RV park, so a little bit different than multifamily, but like, hey, I'm the potential new owner. Tell me what you love about this place. You've been here for 5 years. Tell me what is the best. Tell me what's the worst. Because the owner's not going to tell you that the parking lot floods when it rains. He's not. The residents will, right? The residents will say, well,
Don't hold anything back.
they are, you know, will tell you everything and everything about the property way more than the seller did. You can hire an engineer to do your due diligence. You can hire like all these like operator, blah, blah, blah. You will learn so much from somebody who's been there for 5 years. So you build that rapport of like, hey, I'm the potential new owner. And I like to say I'm the potential new manager. So that way they don't like, can I get a discount? You're like, hey, I'm just a manager. So pro tip for anyone doing this. Um, what do you love about it? What do you hate about it? And then my last question is like, hey, I don't know, but it's just a question on my list here. If the rent did go up $50 per year, what are the chances that you would stay? And so, like, there's nothing that in due diligence that prevents you from doing that. And many people will be like, well, I've been renting from old John here for 5 years and he's never raised my rent. So I think that's fair, or you'll see, like, no way I'd be out of here. There's another campground down the road. We've had our eye on it. This place goes up $50. It's so bad here. We're out. So that tells you, like, okay, well, I need to go make all these improvements in order to win this client at this price. And so that's good to know. Or it's like, hey, it's so good here that going up $50 with a new owner, they're not going to bark at it. But like, I see so many investors that will buy the deal without doing this. They just hire a third party due diligence firm to go say, go verify that the rent that they're paying is X and verify that they paid up through this year, through December, and verify the utility and the trash bill. But like, they don't run test ads. They just kind of run CoStar comps. And the other thing that I want to talk about really quick, I won't go on my soapbox about this, but like, a comp is not a comp. Like, you can't compare a 3,000 square foot apartment to an 800 square foot apartment, even if it's the same zip code, even if it's the same type of construction. And so, like, what people do, and this is a big mistake, is they have this luxurious RV park that they're pointing to and saying, hey, that's market rent. We can buy this dog shit RV park and go to market. No, you
No,
can't. You
you
do
can't.
not have the same amenities. You don't have the same location. And so,
You don't have the same reputation.
reputation. And so you're also inheriting a community. And so the thought of you, like, it's like you have a community of people. Like, that's how these communities lease themselves, specifically in the RV park industry, is like, hey, I love it here. We come here on the weekends. Who else do I want here? Well, I want my best friend and I want my cousin and I want like, and so you have all these people that are in the same, they all make the same amount of money, right? And so when you buy this deal and you think that you're going to 3x rents because you're, an investor from Wall Street, and you know that the comp down the road is like, okay, but your community can't afford that, and your community isn't that, and this is not a product market fit for that. And so, like, to take the risk off the table, you do that before you actually send the wire. But yeah, just a pro tip on, like,
Brought up your story to other people, right? And there's a lot of value add deals specifically in Texas right now, which I see majorly struggling because they probably didn't take some of the steps that you're outlining right here, where you're assuming comps are going to be replicated if you do a different business plan. You're assuming that the market exists for a product. I mean, over renovation is a really big problem. I've worked with a lot of different clients who had properties where look, you renovated yourself out of the market. And yes, while the next town over might have something like this, your direct location doesn't. And so you're trying to create a market where one doesn't exist. And you fell into this mistake because you didn't test properly. You made some assumptions. You looked at data a little bit too favorably or a little bit too optimistically. And yeah, but let's go back to, proving the concept. You said, hey, I'm making this connection between the travel nurses and these studios. There could be a good fit here to reposition this multifamily as short to midterm rentals. You tested the ad, it went well, you sent the wire. When it came to actually marketing and leasing, were there any challenges that stood out in the beginning of saying, oh, this didn't actually end up being how I expected? how did you actually get your marketing strategy off the ground? Because it will be different than a traditional multifamily apartment community. Because the playbook for multifamily marketing is pretty standard. A lot of people just go to the same three things, and just say, cool, like let's just get some good pictures and push it out here. What did you do knowing that it's going to probably have to be different?
Yeah, so when we did our test advertisement, there was one source that was bar none blowing out all the other sources out of the water, and that was Furnish Finder. And Furnish Finder is like Airbnb for traveling nurses. However, you can't book through the platform. So it's simply just a lead source. So Eden goes on to Furnish Finder and says, "Hey, I'm looking for furnished place in Wilmington." I just get that lead. I have to go work that lead. That person can't immediately book to the platform. And Furnace Finder got saturated really fast. And I was like in the shower and I still had shampoo in my hair and like the water just got shut off immediately. Like I went from getting 50 leads a month to 0 leads a month. And that was my like big, huge lead source. So I kind of like went to Kevin and my investors and was like, hey, we have this big problem. I don't know what the solution is, but I'm going to figure it the F out. But just so you know, like this is happening, right? So it wasn't going to them and saying, hey, what can we do? It was like, hey, I'm gonna figure it out. But hey, like, hey, just a heads up, like doomsday is coming, right? So for those that invest passively, if you have a sponsor that is communicating with you about potential problems, like that is, and I'm not raising money, so I have nothing to sell you here, but that is a huge like thing that's a great quality of like giving somebody just a heads up, even if the thing never happens, at least like you're communicating and it's not like doomsday, hey, we're actually can't meet our mortgage this month. Well, why? Well, why didn't you tell me about it? So I didn't know what to do. I mean, it was a really tough, dark time in my career. I just started, obviously take a big risk on me. And I made a huge pivot to SEO and I bought a course on how to build a website. And so I learned SEO. I did every single thing in the course that they told me to do. And it was like magic. It really was. It was like we went to from 10 leads a month to 20 to 30 to 70 to 80 to 90 leads per month in the summertime, all from SEO, no paid ads. So, like, there's a lot of people that are running ads for apartments. There's not a lot of people running this furnished game. And so we're kind of like very unique in that we're not competing against a million other apartment complexes. No one else does this. So we're kind of 1 to 0 in that aspect. So that was like a unique advantage. But I will say that like SEO and Google My Business really saved my business in so many ways. And then from there, I was like, holy cow, I cannot follow up with 80 leads. How can I figure out how to automate following up with them? And that's when I got Russell Brunson's book about sales funnels. And so after you own my apartment, you put in your name and your, hey, I'm interested, your dates, whatever, and it usually says something like, "Thank you, we'll call you soon," or whatever. But I think you have to remember and go back to sales. It's like people are in heat for a very short period of time. They're ready to buy now, right? They're this is the Amazon of like I can buy with one click, right? And so instead of like, hey, thanks for inquiring, it was like, hey, here's all the information and more in our pricing, in our offer, and everything that you would ever possibly need to know about our complex. And so I went from not being able to reply to 80 leads to being able to qualify and disqualify those 80 leads and really be only talking to the ones that really, really matter. And so we treat every lead as if they're gold irregardless. But I think by just posting your prices, that is the best qualifying disqualifier because there's nothing that I can do if you're making $1,000 a month and I'm charging 2,200. There's nothing I can say to you. There's no sales script in the world that's going to make you a fit for my business. And so by just posting that, but then I was like getting these common questions of like, hey, is there a washer and dryer in the unit? Hey, I'm in Arkansas. I want to book. Can we do a video tour? I'm like doing video tours and I'm like, hey, this is me. Like, this is the exact unit that you'd be going to. Like, I'm doing a legit video. And then I'm like, hey, dummy, like, what if you just made a YouTube video and made it somewhat personalized? You could do that for everyone, right? And I kind of personalized everything. Like, after you booked, I would do a walkthrough of like, hey, John, like, this is the unit you're going to go to. You're going to walk through here. You're going to see this unit number, this, that. And I was just like losing my mind of like, I got to figure out how to automate or I'm going to lose my mind, right? And so that's really how I built the funnel was like I had so much demand and then I couldn't keep up. So I was like, I got to figure out how to automate that. And then I had so much demand and I was like, got sick of doing it. I was like, how can I automate this? But I do not think that apartment leasing is an automation game. I do think it's very personalized. And I think that it's like I've leased 200 apartments now in 2 years. And so my average tenant stays for 45 days. So I'm constantly leasing. Every day I'm leasing. Like that is the
It's
name
a
of
lot
my
of reps.
business. It's just leasing. So I have like dialed it in because I've messed up so many freaking times. But like you can't expect your leasing agent to be a salesperson, right? And I think that's the biggest mistake people make is like they buy a property in Arkansas, they have a PM, and like when at 5 p.m., when it's time to close up shop and someone walks in at 5:01, is that leasing agent going to say, hey, let me show you a unit? Or is that leasing agent going to hand them a card and say, we're open from 8 to 5? And I think it's about incentivization. So you have to pay your leasing agent a commission for every sale, for every lease, right? Because otherwise, they just don't care. There are so many other property managers looking for talent. So if she leaves, she's got a job, like a guaranteed job somewhere else. And so I think it's about, okay, we're selling $2,000 leases. Can I pay her a kicker of $100 every time? I make 2,000, she makes 100. That seems pretty fair. So like,
My favorite story about this is a client that had a very big lease up in New Jersey. This was probably $100 million asset. Class A, brand new, on the water, like really gorgeous property with some amazing amenities. And I think the rents were definitely justified. They were spending, I think, over $10,000 to $12,000 a month on marketing, which if you do it right, that's plenty of budget, even for $100 million asset. That is plenty. And she wanted to spend another, few grand. And she told me, Eden, you're a smart marketing guy. What should I do with this? And I looked at it and I said, I don't think you should spend one extra dollar on marketing. I think you should take this budget and you should figure out how to pay it as extra commission to your agents and just watch what happens. And a couple months later, she told me that was absolutely the right move. She said, we did not need to change anything about our marketing. I said, you have an extra $2,000 to spend per month. I said, on a per lease basis, it's actually pretty good money,
yeah,
right? It's actually pretty good money. I said, tell them, hey, by the way, we're doubling commissions effective right now. That's all
yeah.
we're going to
I
do.
think like I learned this from Alex Hormozy. If you haven't read $100 million offers,
I'm in
stop
the
this
middle of it.
podcast right now because what I'm about to say is nothing compared to what he says. But it's like, so you have a funnel and everyone understands that. You can either work on creating more leads or you can work at your conversion rates. That's the only two things that you can do. So if you're selling hair products, it's just like a name of like, well, the amount of leads and then convert, right? But if you're selling apartments, it's like, how can I don't need 200 leads a month. If I can just convert better, my life would be so much easier,
It's also
right?
way cheaper to do that and way less
Way
effort.
cheaper, more profit
It's more
for
about
you.
being smart. It's more about being smart than it is about bringing the big guns and the big budgets and kind of.
Yeah, I think keeping it simple is so underrated. I have this email marketing funnel that I built. So after you inquire, it automatically plugs you in. And you basically just get one email a day. And I basically built it out of every single common question I get. So it's like, are washers and dryers included? What's near me? These people are coming from Arkansas. They don't know Wilmington. So if I can be the source of like telling them everything, the best grocery stores, the best walking paths, the best food in town, and it's between me and somebody who's not picking up the phone, even if there's a price difference, I've built that trust to where I have all the reviews on Google. I have built up to over 60 reviews, and that's a hack in itself. If you take nothing from this podcast and you're leasing apartments, go get 5-star reviews. The bar is so, so low. It's disgusting. And Google is a local search game. So it's not a hair product where anyone and everyone you want to sell to. You only want to sell apartments that are looking in Phoenix, Arizona, in Wilmington, North Carolina. So it's a local play. So those 5-star reviews are everything. And then what's awesome about them, if you actually earn them, you can bake those in, those third-party stories, those third-party reviews into your copywriting, into your offer, into your automated emails, and you're not feeling like a shyster because you know the value is so
That's
good.
my favorite copywriting hack. Just use your reviews.
Just use your reviews, but as long as you've earned them, like use that. It's such a powerful tool. I mean, think about you have to like, and so many people are so disconnected from the actual leasing process. I think that's a big thing too, is like these are CEOs, these are guys with 1,000 units, and they've never actually talked to a lead themselves. But like I have that unique advantage of being boots on the ground. And it's just because I'm a startup and you have to do everything like we talked to in the beginning. And so when you listen and when you realize that everyone has that same question, you can change your offer, you can change your copywriting in order to like make it sound like at first we were saying 2,200 a month. That sounds like so much for people for some reason. But these are people who are staying in hotels. And a hotel is, a decent one is
Could be a couple
130.
hundred a night easily,
Yeah, like
right?
130,
I guess in
140.
your location, yeah.
But then you have to pay for parking, and then there's the tax, and then there's the this and the that, and they add,
The washer dryer that you don't have, and the this and
yeah, and
that.
it's
Yeah.
$200 by the time you're out the door, and you got to go to the laundromat. So instead of me saying 2,200 a month, now I just say $70 a night out the door, no tax, no added fees. And people are like,
You're
that
letting
can't.
them compare apples to apples.
Yeah, exactly right. They're like, but that can't be real. Like, you don't add, like, what's the fees? Like, there are no fees. All of the utilities are included, and I don't make you put the cable in your name. The cable is in my name. The electricity is in my name. Everything, like, it's so easy. Like, you just bring your suitcase to and move in. So I had to like, what wasn't working. Like, people think like, oh, it's not working, and I'm hitting my hand with a hammer and it hurts. Maybe if I do it faster, it'll stop hurting. It's like, no, you just got to make that, you got to make that pivot, or you have to accept the fact that you don't have product market fit. It's one of two things. And I like the first thing. I like when First Finder got shut down, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm absolutely gonna figure it out. If I have to go stand outside with a sign, I have a recourse loan on this, and I took money from other people. Like, if this deal goes south, I lose my house. Like that's what a recourse loan is. But also I lose that relationship, that partnership. And
Don't get
so
investors for the next deal.
exactly. And so Kevin and I have gone to go over and do around $10 million worth of deals together because of me absolutely crushing it, being scrappy, be willing to build a website, knowing nothing about SEO, and making these strategic pivots. And I'm still making pivots, right? Like we're still doing and changing things. Google suspended my business in the
Yeah, that was
summertime.
crazy. I remember that.
Yeah, so I got suspended by Google. So it was like Furnished Finder all over again. And being an entrepreneur, you're like, I've been here. All right,
Totally.
are you testing me? Like, because I will come out. I will like. It's like, okay, this is another test. Got it. This is a quiz. I can do this.
One thing that I want to focus on that you said, which is back from the $100 million offers book, is he has a line where he says prospects are ghosting you because you know your objections, but you're not addressing them up front. Why are you waiting for people to tell you their objections? Most of them are never going to tell you that objection, and that will be the reason they just don't move forward in your process. So you took all the objections, you said, I know they're going to ask me these questions. Why don't I just address them as early as possible? And a wider, portion of my leads will actually continue through to the sales process and actually end up leasing. So many people don't do this. And it's so silly. It's so simple. But I don't know why so many don't do this. They're like, oh, yeah, like they'll ask us and we'll tell them over the phone or over email. It's like, if you know what they want, then deliver. Give it to them. It's going to get you more people, not deter more people.
And you save so much time, I think. I think that's the biggest thing. You're talking to leads that have the budget versus don't have the budget. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
people like I treat every lead as gold. Don't get me wrong, but I also still get a lot of leads that are looking for 1 year. Like we're not the cheapest if you're looking for 1 year, so that's usually how I frame it. I'm like, hey, we do 1 year leases, However, we're probably not the best fit because of our price and what we include. We're more of like bridge housing. However, here is the option. And I think that that's a key is like always use the discount. Everyone's getting a discount on my apartments. So like right now my rates are like 1900 a month and that is the rate for everyone. But when someone comes in the door, someone calls, I'm like, "Hey, right now the price is 2300 a month, but because you're staying for whatever their lease is, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, like it's actually 1900 a month for you." Right now we only have 2 units and I can't reserve a unit unless if you put a deposit. So is this something that are you in person? Do you want to come take a look at it? I always prefer my tenant to come take a look at it. That way you know what you're getting. You like the area, you can see it, you can smell it. A lot of people book sight unseen, but just want to provide like, are you around? Do you want to go do a tour? And if I can get them for a tour, it's over, right? Because the value is there, but everyone gets a discount. People don't buy, they buy because of value, not because of price. And so if they know that it used to be 2300, even if that was the summer rate and now it's winter, whatever, right? They feel inclined. They feel like I'm getting a freaking deal. And so,
It's huge.
exactly. And so everyone's always getting that offer. Everyone's always getting pushed to a tour because I know if I can get them to a tour, I can get them to a lease. So, I mean, that's what's worked for me. That's really what's like been top of mind is speed to lead. Like,
Big time.
yeah,
I love that.
huge. You're only in heat for so long, and they're ready to book now. This is the Amazon buy with one click, so give it to them, right? Get a dog going crazy.
Sorry about that. My computer was about to die and I just noticed it right now.
Nice.
I'm gonna have to edit that. It's all good. But yeah, no, we'll cut that part out. Yeah, speed to lead, I will literally never shut up about because so many people show me their conversion funnel and they're like, listen, we got 200 people in, we converted 30% to actually book a tour. Half of those people actually signed an application, then another half of those people leased. And it's like, well, you shot one email to most of these people and didn't do anything else. So if you just were faster to the draw and you used multiple methods of communication to get in touch with them, you wouldn't need more leads. You could probably get better results with half the leads that you have. And it's a big topic in multifamily, but I'll literally never shut up about speed to lead,
It's like a
especially because
networking tool that I've used now too, where like people are like, "Hey, do you have time for a call next week?" I'm like, "What's your number? I'm calling you right now." Or if I have the person's number, I'm like calling them right like the second I got the email, and they're like, "I'm like, hey, what's up?" It's like, why are we waiting a week to get a tour? Why are we waiting a week to set up a call? Everyone has a calendar and they're like, "Oh, I'm at the gym, I'm in flow, but I got a call in an hour." It's like, why? Remove that. Let's speed it up. If you want to set up a call, I'm calling you right now, especially if I'm in the car, especially if I'm available, even if I'm walking. I don't want things in my calendar. And that's exactly what enables me to get a lead, answer the phone, get a lead, immediately call back, give them the offer. Because I'm not tied up doing things that really aren't important or that didn't have to wait 2 weeks.
yeah, no, exactly. I love that. Nick, thank you so much for sharing your story. My favorite part about it is, of course, the way that you proved the concept because it's very unique and I don't hear about people doing this before they actually buy properties. So the fact that you did it and that's kind of, what sealed the deal for you and you proved your hypothesis. You said, if we could do this, then it will work. And you were right. And even with the obstacles of furnished finder, pulling the rug out from underneath you and then Google doing the same thing, I guess the second time around, you were like, I've been here before, so I know I'll get out of it again. I really appreciate you spilling all the details and just all your guidance. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks. I'm super active on LinkedIn. So if you guys message me on LinkedIn, that's really the best place to get me where I'm most active. So appreciate you having me as well.
I love nerding out about marketing with Nick, so definitely take him up on this offer. I'll include his LinkedIn URL and go message him, ask him how he did what he did.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Building Blocks. I hope you found some value in the conversation. If you want to get updated every time a new episode drops, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn at Eden Chai, or just head over to our website, getflare.io, and subscribe. You'll see our newsletter there as well. That's all for today. I'll catch you next time.